This is the Extra Point Podcast. During this podcast, we will dive deeper into our Sunday teaching and share practical next steps for your faith journey. Now, let's kick off the Extra Point.
Hey there, thanks for checking out the Extra Point Podcast here at Southridge Church. I am Scott Beha, I'm the lead pastor, and I am with one of our interns, Aleigha Tucker, who did our message yesterday. And we are sitting in the waiting room from the sermon yesterday. And so before we get rolling with this, if you have not yet liked, subscribed, followed, whatever platform you are on, make sure that you go ahead and do that so that way you never miss an episode here of the Extra Point Podcast. And so we hope that you tune in with that every single week. Share this with somebody so that it gets in front of even more folks. But we're going to be talking to Aleigha a little bit further today about her sermon yesterday. And we were dealing with the topic of waiting and how when we don't wait, there can always be some consequences. But this was your first time preaching on a Sunday morning.
Yes.
And so this is a unique opportunity to get to talk to you about that. What was preaching on a Sunday morning like? What were some of the things that maybe you were surprised by, that you learned, or just how did it go for you?
So it went pretty well. I was on such an adrenaline rush, like in the morning.
Yeah.
I could barely sleep last night, which I told the night before. The night before, I could barely sleep. So I told you about that.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't know how you do this. I was up all through the night just thinking about it. And I get up at 5. I get ready. I head in here early.
Yeah.
And I'm just feeling real good. A little nervous, but not like too nervous. And then I get up here. I'm on this adrenaline rush. And then 11 o'clock comes, and I am ready to crash.
Yeah.
Halfway through 11 o'clock service, it's like I'm ready to just hit the floor.
Yep.
Yeah. But it was really fun. It was exciting. A lot of good feedback.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where I go from here because it's just going to be up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What was the most difficult part of preaching on a Sunday here at Southridge?
The most difficult part, honestly, just having to do stuff here throughout the week and then prepare for Sunday.
Yeah.
That was difficult. I really don't understand how you do it. It was hard to balance all that, like find a balance. But then another thing, I don't know what it was, but like, it was quiet sometimes. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So
even
like
in
it
the
throws
small
me
room,
off. Yeah.
Even in the small room, everyone feels really far away.
Yes.
When you're up on stage, even
yeah.
though your family was right on the front row.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the stage is kind of lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, when you're up here for worship, you have all your friends and stuff with
Yeah.
you. Yeah. When you're up there with the microphone, it's drastically different. So
Yeah.
yesterday we learned about 1 Samuel 13, the story of Saul not wanting to wait on Samuel to show up to do the sacrifices before they went out to battle.
Yeah.
And so what is probably the big idea that we learned from that passage yesterday?
Well, that the wait can be hard, but the consequences of not waiting are harder.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can wait for things, and it gets difficult, especially like in those last moments of waiting. And we see that, like, that last couple, I would say it probably was in the couple hour time frame, I don't know for sure, but if I had to imagine, it's the 7th day, he's waiting there, he knows it's coming, he just doesn't know when, and like, it's hard in those last couple minutes, those last seconds of waiting is so hard. And when we react and do something, like the consequence of that can be pretty big. It could be something little too. Like it doesn't have to be like a huge extravagant consequence. In Saul's case it was, but sometimes in our everyday life it's not that big. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Waiting, and I think we see this with Saul, has a negative effect on our emotions a lot of times.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like real wired up,
Mm-hmm.
just inside anyways. Because you mentioned that we saw Saul demand those things be brought to him.
Yeah.
Which demanding is something that we normally do when we're not in a good headspace or a good emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know for me, if somebody last week here at church messaged me and they said, "Hey, I need to talk to you about something going on with someone at the church."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Great, can we do that right now?"
Yeah.
Because the waiting to find out what it is that you're going to tell me is going to cause me an unbelievable amount of uncomfortable moments and anxiousness. It's going to rub off on my family. Like, just, if you're
Yeah.
listening to this, do me a favor.
Yeah.
Like, don't bring a problem to me and tell me, let's meet in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to affect my whole family
Yeah.
until you tell me. So that's what I told her. She's like, no, I can't talk about it right now or whatever. I need to come into the office tomorrow. I said, well, here's what I need. I need you to tell me in a text or an email what it's in regards to.
Yeah.
And then we can meet and talk further tomorrow. Because when we're in those waiting moments and you're like, I'm not sure how this is going to go,
Yeah.
our emotions get the best of us.
For sure.
What role do you think that probably played for Saul?
I think it was the main role. The main thing that set him over the edge was.
Yeah.
I really do. And plus seeing, I think that in himself, but I think that was also triggered from his men.
Yeah.
Growing anxious as well. You know what I mean? Seeing people around him feeling anxious and abandoning him full of fear, like he's already feeling that.
Yeah.
And that just like enhanced it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think watching the people leave, watching his men that were supposed to be there to fight with him leave. And again, I think that we probably experience a lot of that. That's probably another part of the text that we might not have even touched much on is how much more difficult waiting gets when people are actually leaving. Like when you're losing while you're waiting.
Yeah.
What do you think that effect was having on Saul too? When you lose something in the waiting period.
Yeah, when you lose something in the waiting period, like it probably affected him negatively because I know from experience I've waited for such things to happen.
Yeah.
And I've lost friends.
Yep.
I've lost family members.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like there's things that I've lost that has affected me negatively. You know, like just saddened me really more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I'm sad, I get even angrier. Honestly, like if I'm angry, usually I'm crying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it's a mixed emotion for me. So Saul probably felt a lot of that too. It affected him in more of a negative way than it would have any other time. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Saul is in a difficult situation, and he still makes the wrong choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you there's a point that you made Sunday that sometimes the choices that we make end up affecting people other than ourselves.
Yeah.
Share more about that.
So I'm just going to tell a personal story about my mom. So my mom, she had me when she was 17. And she had grew up within the church, and they had always told her to just like kind of wait.
Yeah.
Don't have kids. Wait till you're married. Don't jump into relationships. Wait for intimacy, all this stuff. So like she didn't. You know what I mean? And she had me at 17, and my dad wasn't there. So a consequence of her not waiting affected me because my father, I met him when I was 10 one time, and that was it. So like he wasn't there through my whole childhood, and like it just affected me.
Yep.
You know, obviously it affected her too, but it also led to me. And honestly, it could have led to my kids too had I not, God had not placed Jacob in my life too, you know, because I was on a path that she was on, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that sometimes our choices affect other people because sometimes we won't make good choices if we're the only ones affected by it.
Yeah.
But if we can remember that ultimately our kids pay the consequences whenever we don't make wise choices.
Yeah.
Whenever we rush into things that we shouldn't, you know. You see this just all the time with different relationships and financial choices. Like, your kids and their kids and on down the line will pay for every choice that you rushed out of the waiting room and right into whatever it was that you were meant to be waiting for.
Yeah.
And so, all right, well, let's any final thoughts on your sermon from Sunday?
I don't think so.
Awesome. Well, if you have not yet listened to Sunday's message, I'd highly encourage you to go listen to it because waiting can be difficult, but the consequences of not waiting can hurt a whole lot more than that wait. And so I hope that's what you got out of it. That's what I got out of it. I hope that we'll learn how to take that into our life and put it into practice And again, I hope that you will check out the Extra Point podcast every single week that we post it. Share it with someone. Hopefully that this will be a resource for you and your circle to maybe take some next steps in your faith journey. So thanks so much for joining us today. We hope to see you again next time.
Thanks for tuning in to The Extra Point. Be sure to subscribe to the Southridge Church podcast and tune in every Wednesday for another episode of The Extra Point.